There is an undeniable, raw, mechanical heartbeat to a well-built wheel gun. When that heavy steel cylinder indexes and clicks into battery, it commands absolute respect on the firing line. But today, we are stepping away from the hardware itself. We are putting the spotlight on the pure, unadulterated horsepower that feeds the cylinder. I am talking about the legendary 357 Magnum. A ton of casual shooters glance at the ballistic charts and assume they understand what this round is all about. Let me tell you, from years on the range, reading a spreadsheet is a whole lot different than managing this recoil impulse in the real world. This is not just some dusty box of range ammo sitting on a shelf. This is a brutally effective, high-pressure defensive tool. It has dominated law enforcement, punched right through heavy barriers, and sadly, caused absolute devastation when deployed by the wrong people. Take a hard look at the active shooter incident up in Washington from November 2025. It was a sobering, violent reminder of what this specific caliber is capable of. The attacker ambushed two National Guard members using a .357 Magnum revolver. The terminal ballistics at the scene were nothing short of catastrophic. We are talking about jacketed projectiles moving so fast they over-penetrated completely. They sliced straight through the intended targets and turned a chaotic scene into a multi-casualty nightmare. It perfectly illustrates the massive double-edged sword of carrying a Magnum on the street. On one hand, you possess overwhelming, undeniable stopping power. On the other hand, you are wrestling with a recoil snap that wants to break your wrists. You are dealing with a concussive muzzle blast that feels like a flashbang detonating at arm's length. And you carry the massive legal weight of potential overpenetration. Stick around for this one. We are stripping away the gun counter lore and diving deep into the raw ballistic reality. I want you walking away knowing exactly how to deploy this cartridge safely without becoming a massive liability to your own family. Forged in the era of steel. To truly grasp why the .357 Magnum hits like a runaway freight train, we have to look in the rearview mirror. Let us dial it back to the gritty days of the early 20th century. Law enforcement across the country was facing a massive surge in heavily armed, highly mobile, organized crime syndicates. These mobsters were not cruising around in fiberglass sedans. They were driving heavily armored, thick-gauge steel vehicles. Cops on the beat were carrying standard-issue .38 special revolvers, and they quickly realized they had a massive tactical problem. Those low-pressure, round-nosed lead bullets were literally bouncing off auto glass and car doors. The good guys were severely outgunned on the streets. Smith & Wesson, partnering with ammunition engineers, decided to shatter the ceiling of internal ballistics. In 1935, they unleashed the .357 Magnum. Now, from an engineering standpoint, they took a standard .38 special brass case and stretched it out by exactly 1/8 of an inch. That extra length was not just to pack in more powder, it was a genius safety mechanism. It physically prevented someone from accidentally loading this high-pressure pipe bomb into a vintage .38 special frame. If you tried that, the old cylinder would grenade right in your hands. Practically overnight, patrolmen had a sidearm that could punch through a V8 engine block. It completely defeated cover that the criminal underworld thought was bulletproof. It essentially put carbine-level penetration right into a duty holster. That deep-rooted legacy of raw power is exactly why you still see veteran gunfighters carrying it today. Why the Magnum reigns supreme. So how does a cartridge engineered nearly a century ago still dominate the conversation in 2026? It all comes down to the ruthless physics of terminal ballistics. Velocity and energy transfer. When you pull the trigger on a premium full-house defensive load, you are launching a 125-grain projectile out of the muzzle at well over 1,400 feet per second. Some of these modern boutique loads are pushing the envelope even harder. That screaming velocity translates to an incredibly flat trajectory. You can comfortably ring steel targets at 50 or even 100 yards if you do your part. And when that hollow point finally impacts tissue, the energy transfer is absolutely devastating. It rips open a massive, temporary stretch cavity that overwhelms the central nervous system almost instantly. The versatility factor. Then you factor in the sheer unmatched versatility. If you are trekking deep into grizzly country, you can load up 180-grain hard-cast lead thumpers. Or, if you are carrying concealed downtown, you swap those out for fast-opening, lightweight, jacketed hollow points. It is the ultimate multi-tool of the defensive ammunition world. Whether you are running it in a slicked-up duty revolver or a modern lever-action carbine to maximize your velocity, it just gets the job done. Mechanical accuracy. Let us talk about inherent mechanical accuracy. Unlike your standard striker-fired semi-auto, where the barrel has to tilt and unlock to cycle the slide, a revolver barrel is pinned solidly to the frame. It does not move. It does not rattle. That rigid lockup provides a level of precision that makes an average shooter look like a seasoned marksman. Barrier-blind performance. And then there is the barrier-blind capability. We already talked about 1930s steel car doors, but this round eats modern barriers for breakfast. Heavy winter coats, sheetrock, modern laminated windshields. Where a standard 9mm or 380 ACP might deflect, crush, or fragment prematurely, the 357 Magnum just keeps digging its way to the vitals. Recoil management. Now, let us discuss recoil management. If you step up to the real hand cannons like the .44 Magnum or the .500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, you are basically signing up for physical abuse. The 357 Magnum is the perfect Goldilocks zone. It commands absolute authority downrange, but with a proper locked-in grip, you can actually manage the muzzle flip. You can easily get your sights back on target for a rapid follow-up shot without blowing out your wrists. The training cheat code. Here is the ultimate tactical hack that makes this platform unbeatable. If your gun is stamped 357 Magnum, it will gladly run .38 Special all day long. Those .38 rounds are shorter, generate a fraction of the pressure, and cost way less at the register. You can spend hours at the range burning through low recoil .38s. You can build solid muscle memory. You can master that long, heavy double-action trigger press without developing a flinch. Then, when it is time to clock in for duty or defend your family, you load the cylinder with the heavy-hitting Magnum rounds. You are essentially getting two completely different ballistic profiles out of a single piece of hardware. Real-world application. Make no mistake, this is a working man's caliber. When we look at the historical data for civilian self-defense, the track record of the 357 Magnum speaks for itself. We all know the magical one-shot stop is mostly gun store fiction. But if any handgun cartridge comes close to making it a reality, it is this one. For the outdoorsman watching right now, I have personally seen this cartridge take down medium-sized game with absolute authority. It hits wild hogs and white-tailed deer like a sledgehammer. It generates enough hydrostatic shock to guarantee an ethical, clean harvest every single time. And in the competitive shooting world, that repeatable, locked barrel accuracy means you can punch out the center of the X-ring until the range officer calls it a day. The tactical liability. But we have to look at the dark side of the equation. You cannot harness this much kinetic energy without taking on massive responsibility. Over-penetration. The biggest threat is over-penetration. The exact same kinetic energy that defeats an old Ford engine block is a terrifying liability inside a modern suburban home. If you jerk the trigger and miss the threat, or even if you center punch the attacker with a non-expanding target load, that bullet is going straight through them. It is going through 2 layers of drywall, through your home's exterior siding, and straight into the neighbor's living room across the street. You own every piece of lead that exits your muzzle. Title 18 of the United States Code does not give you a pass just because you were scared. You have to be completely hyper-aware of your backstop. The lessons of Miami. Let us look at the grim tactical lessons from Miami. April 11th, 1986. The infamous FBI shootout. We all know the suspect, Michael Platt, used a Mini 14, but he also ran a .357 Magnum revolver during that brutal fight. Even after taking multiple devastating, ultimately fatal hits from federal agents, Platt kept fighting, and he used that revolver to inflict horrific damage. He took the lives of 2 brave FBI agents and severely wounded several others. The terminal ballistics were completely barbaric. That specific bloodbath forced the FBI, and eventually the entire global law enforcement community, to rewrite their ammunition standards. It highlighted that shot placement and adequate penetration depth are king. But it also demonstrated the terrifying reality of high-velocity Magnum rounds tearing through human tissue in close quarters. Sensory overload. We also have to talk about sensory overload. If you touch off a full-house Magnum load inside a dark enclosed hallway without hearing protection, you are guaranteeing yourself immediate and permanent hearing loss. The concussive shock wave in a confined space is violently loud, and the muzzle flash? It is basically a camera flash going off inches from your face. It will instantly nuke your natural night vision. You might neutralize the immediate threat, but you will be completely deaf and blind while you try to assess the aftermath. In a chaotic gunfight, losing your senses for even 2 seconds will get you killed. Running the gun safely so. How do we run this beast responsibly? Situational awareness first. Extreme situational awareness. If you use this for home defense, full metal jacket ammunition is strictly forbidden. You need to invest in high-end frangible rounds or premium defensive hollow points. You want a bullet engineered to violently expand, dump every ounce of kinetic energy into the bad guy, and stop inside the primary target. Training progression second. Respect the training progression. Do not ever hand a lightweight, snub-nose .357 to a new shooter. You will instantly traumatize them and permanently ruin their trigger control. Start them off with soft-shooting .38 Special. Let them learn how to prep and pull a double-action trigger smoothly. Once they have the core fundamentals locked down, then you can slowly introduce the Magnum heat. Gear selection. Finally, gear up properly. Protect your hearing at all costs. Electronic Ear Pro is absolutely mandatory. It lets you hear range commands, or, God forbid, the footsteps of an intruder in your house. But the second that hammer drops, it instantly dampens that decibel spike. And whenever you can, practice with your Magnum loads at an outdoor range. Let that punishing acoustic wave escape into the atmosphere instead of trapping it inside a concrete indoor shooting bay.